Hello everyone. Welcome to ZPR, Zanu Project Rethink, and I'm Franck Zanu. I'm in the studio with a very, very interesting personality. Someone people have asked me to bring into the studio since I made that reaction to his video, The Dispossession of White America. Now I think some of you know who I'm talking about. We've had a long conversation over the phone, email before he arrived in Connecticut yesterday. It's really a pleasure to have him here with me. And the name is Jared Taylor. When you go on the internet and you don't go to his page or read his book, then of course, Jared Taylor is known as a white supremacist, a nationalist, a separatist, a racist. Well, he's in the studio to say which of this one really befits him. Jared, welcome to ZPR.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Correct. I told one of my friends you're coming and said, you serious? Because of course, he read about you on the internet and they have names depending on what they heard about you or how they came across you. I don't know any of those yet. And so today, the two types of conversations we have on ZPR is either one, people come on to debate a subject, something I said, and so that will become like a debate. Today is not a debate. Today, I'm making the public hear from, as they say, the horse's own mouth. Now, I've taken a look at some of your books. I think when I started talking to you, I've read 3 already.
Well, good.
I have with me The White Identity.
Yes.
Racial Consciousness in the 21st Century by Jared Taylor. You also are the author of Paved with Good Intentions. That, I think, is a very, very popular book.
Well, it's my first book about race.
Oh, that's right.
Yes, I've written 3 books about race. The one after this one is called If We Do Nothing.
That's correct.
But good for you for actually having found out what I say rather than reading what my enemies say about what I say.
Yeah.
That puts you apart right there from all the rest.
Well, let me tell you something. When I arrived in this country, of course, I came here to college, journalism, and my academic advisor would pull me aside because he knew I came from Africa and I was a big mouth on campus. So he would pull me aside, a very, very graceful, he taught me a lot. And he would say, Frank, there is freedom of speech in America, but there are 2 types of freedom of speech. The other one, nobody wants to get near to it. And I would say, what is it? And he said, the first one is very, very common. You can take a placard and stand in a street corner any day of the week and scream profanities into the air with the president's name all you want. That one is for the lazy people and it's easy. The other freedom of speech, the difficult one, is you sitting across somebody whom you disagree with or has polar opposite views on anything, can do with race, color, anything, and yet be able to make room for him to share his views, no matter how unpleasant and uncomfortable, and yet respect it, and for him to allow you. Now that, he said to me, my country, my people are running away from that one.
He's absolutely right about that. Americans love to brag about their First Amendment and how they believe in freedom of speech. Very, very few Americans really believe in complete freedom of speech, especially and particularly for those with whom they disagree. There is terrible hypocrisy about this. And someone like me. And you mentioned what people call me. If you look me up on the internet, I believe the very first sentence of my Wikipedia biography says, Jared Taylor is a white supremacist.
Yes.
That's it. Full stop.
Yeah.
Now, what does that word even mean? Now, if someone believes that I am a white supremacist, you will find that the vast majority of Americans, certainly people on college campuses, would say someone who is a white supremacist should not be allowed to speak on a college campus or even in public. And I can't tell you how many platforms I've been removed from because people don't like what I say. YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. I have an organization. We have been prevented from using all of the usual email programs like Constant Contact, all of that stuff. In fact, my organization has even been kicked out of 6 banks because people don't like what I say. The idea that we really respect dissidents, that you have the right to say whatever you like, and I will defend your right to the death to say so. This is all hypocritical baloney. But anyway.
So Jared,
yes.
what is it you say
Good question.
that have people remove you from banks and all these platforms? So I read the first part, and it was interesting. I will come to that later. But what is it that you say that have you removed from banks and all this?
Well, of course, you'd have to ask them because I can't read their minds.
Right.
But rather than calling myself a white supremacist, which to me is a historical term, there were people in the past who were white supremacists. I have never met someone that I would call a white supremacist. That word should be retired. But it's the one that people apply to white people with whom they disagree because it's the one that implies the greatest moral inferiority. If someone can be called a white supremacist, then you don't have to pay attention to anything he says because obviously he's full of hatred and he's probably unhinged, probably belongs in a mental institution. So, the way I describe what I talk about and stand for are two things. One is called race realism. It's the idea that race is not some kind of sociological optical illusion, which was an idea that was circulated with great vigor at one time. We were supposed to think that it's really all in our minds. If you look at a pygmy and a Dane and you think that they're different, you're really wrong. There's nothing biological about it. And I remember when this madness was at its height, people would talk about a person who is racialized as black. In other words, you're not really black. You are racialized as black by people whose minds have been infected by this cuckoo idea about race. In any case, my point is, race is a genuine biological phenomenon. And furthermore, people of different races consistently build societies that reflect their differences, that races are not interchangeable. If you swapped out the population of, say, Japan and replaced it with nothing but Turks, say, or Somalis or Indonesians, you would not have Japan. Japanese society and culture would not be continued in a meaningful way. So the races are different, and also, in a multiracial society, different races have different interests. They are competing interests. And the final aspect of race realism leads to what I call white advocacy. And that is the position that white people, just like people of all other races, have legitimate interests as a group. And whites are the only group, certainly in the United States, and you could even say around the world, who are denied the kinds of expression of interest that are taken for granted by every other racial group.
So from what you said, the executive summary of the American Renaissance, an organization you put together.
That's correct.
35 years ago, 1990.
That's 36 years ago now.
36 years
That's
ago,
right.
1990, you put together the American Renaissance. And from what I read in the introduction you gave me, the American Renaissance is what you just mentioned while you were explaining that it's an advocacy group.
Yes, it's an advocacy
So
group.
you are an advocate for white interest.
Yes, yes.
Now, advocating for white interest, how is it different from saying I'm a white nationalist? Not that the term white nationalist has any bad connotation, but for those of people who have called you a white nationalist.
Presumably, a white nationalist is someone who wants to live in a nation that is white, or overwhelmingly white, or exclusively white. That is one possible legitimate interest of white people, but that is a specific one. Whites can have interests of their own, whether it is to build a white society or to have their own interests protected in a multiracial society. White nationalism is an expression of white interests that is more specific than white advocacy.
I see.
Now, I would like to distinguish both of them from white supremacy. If that term has any meaning at all, it's the idea that whites should be ruling over people of different races. And back in the era of slavery or of the European imperial empires, there was very much an idea that whites should be in a position to overlook and to run the affairs of people of different races. That was a legitimate expression of white supremacy. The people who think as I do, I don't know a single one who thinks, well, yes, white people should just be cracking the whip over people of other races. No one thinks that way. If anything, people who think the way I do think that white people should have the right to be left alone, to build their own communities, their own societies, maintain their majorities in their historical homelands, and build a community or a society in which their destiny remains in their own hands rather than being outnumbered by newcomers or being told that what they're doing is wrong. Just leave us alone.
So the difference between the American Renaissance
Yes.
and, of course, the Oranian project. He came all the way from South Africa.
Orania, yes.
So the difference between the American Renaissance and the Orania is that the Orania segregated itself away from the main culture to find a land for themselves to protect their heritage, language, religion, and culture.
Yes.
The American Renaissance, which is your argument and your work is that, yes, America is a white country, and that you are advocating for people to pay attention to the culture, heritage, and religion of the people who are the predominant ones so we can preserve it. Is that the advocacy?
The goal is the same. In Orania, Afrikaners want a society that reflects them in every possible way, language, religion, and biologically. People who are biologically Afrikaner. And I say, God bless them. In the United States, given the number of non-whites in this country, I think it would be impossible to try to rebuild an overwhelmingly or all-white United States of America. That possibility has disappeared. In the United States, I think the only ultimate solution that would preserve Western heritage and the culture of Europeans in North America would be some kind of enclave or balkanization. But the idea is the same, that all people, and not just non-whites, have the right to a homeland that is unquestionably theirs. Now, if we take into consideration the fact that the United States is already, 55% or no, only 55% white at this point, whites were supposed to become minority in 2045, the idea of saying, well, okay, we're going to take it all back. That's not practical, and in the case of the American Indians and in the case of blacks who were brought here against their will, that's really not ethical. What are we supposed to say to black people who've been here for 300 years? Okay, you got to bugger off. Now you go to Benin, you go to Cameroon. No, I mean, look, that's just not proper. And
so which aspect of the current landscape of the United States really bothers you, or which ignited the formation of the American Renaissance?
Okay, I would say, and this is an idea that may shock you and it may shock some of your viewers, but in my view, white people are committing suicide. They're committing suicide in two ways. One is psychological, and then the other is actual physical disappearance, if you will. And for example, one of the obvious expressions of psychological suicide in the United States, and in fact all around the white world, is the idea of diversity is our strength. Diversity, well, people sometimes talk about diversity as if it included language and religion and sexual orientation, but the real aspect of diversity that people whoop about the loudest is racial diversity. And the idea is, if anything is overwhelmingly white, that's no good. You've got to have diversity, to the point that there are people that keep score as to which professional sports are sufficiently diverse. Well, which sports are adequately diverse? Well, the National Basketball Association, which is what, 75% black? That is adequately diverse. Even if it were 100% black, that would be diverse. The idea is diversity always comes at the expense of whites. Now, what group of people could possibly be tricked into thinking diversity, that is to say, the reduction of their numbers, their influence, their power over their own destiny was a wonderful strength? You really expect white people, and most of them will obediently do so, to say, diversity is wonderful. That means I am looking forward to becoming a minority and perhaps disappearing.
Okay, so
this is cuckoo.
Okay, the argument that people bring
Yes.
to what you have just said, why when it is, let's say, overwhelmingly white, is
Yes.
when they talk about diversity, it's not just because of the skin color being white. They are saying the wealth, the opportunities, and so on and so forth, is kind of centralized only among white people.
What if there were only white people here? Let's take the example of, say, take China. Say you went to China. You poke around for a few weeks and you'd look around, and then you come back to your Chinese hosts and you say, not a bad country you have here, but you know what the biggest problem? Too damn many Chinese. You need diversity.
But that is different from saying that the wealth, the opportunities, and amenities are concentrated only in white areas. That's why we need diversity.
Wait. China has plenty of wealth,
Yes.
and it has poverty too. But China is for the Chinese, and no one disputes that the wealth that's been built up in China is for Chinese people. But if you said to them, it's diversity strength the Americans, look at them, look how powerful they are. And if you want to be like the Americans, of course they don't, but the thinking would be, you need to import, a couple of million Pakistanis, Bulgarians would be nice. Also, I don't know, Indonesians, people who are utterly unlike you. Then you'll be a real country. They would look at you and they would call in the men in the white coats and they would put you in a rubber room. They would say, you're insane. However, every white country, if I'm a Frenchman and I say, France used to be overwhelmingly French and white, I want it to stay that way, that's evil. But if the Turks say, we are Turks, we like being Turks, we want to remain Turkish forever, that's perfectly okay. This is a suicidal double standard.
Before I go to something you wrote in the introduction of this book, let's go to what you just said.
Okay.
Who are the culprits?
We are the culprits.
No, be specific. Who are the culprits who are saying that if a place is overwhelmingly white, and then it's not America enough, let's diversify the place? Who are these culprits who are committing their own suicide?
It is white people. That's why I call it suicide and not murder. There are plenty of liberal white people who go along with this foolishness.
Okay, now you're being specific.
Excuse me?
Of course you're being specific now. It's the liberal whites.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Take someone like Hillary Clinton. For years, she and Bill Clinton, they would whoop about how wonderful diversity is. I remember Hillary Clinton went back to her old high school, and there was this group of students who came to listen to the First Lady of the United States, and she says, I look around and I see all this wonderful diversity. It wasn't this way when I was a student here, and this is so great. This is the future. She never explicitly said, and white people become a minority, and that's fine too, but that's what's implied. Well, this great lover of diversity, where she and Bill left the White House, where did they go live? They bought a house in Chappaqua, New York. It's about as white a place as you can find this side of Iceland. Last I checked, there were maybe 3 black people living in Chappaqua, New York. Maybe there are none now. But this is the kind of utter and total
Is it possible they
hypocrisy.
chose Chappaqua for security reasons? Of course, they are the first former president and first lady.
Well,
but he bought his office in Bronx.
Look, they could have
Harlem.
He's never there. The idea was, if they wanted to live in Bronx, they have got the Secret Service. They could be secure there. They can be secure anywhere. They can be helicoptered in and out. They can have gunships around them if need be. No, they want to be around white people. And Hillary Clinton, if she wants to have a backyard barbecue, or she wants to invite the neighbors in for a drink, is she looking for Guatemalans? Is she looking for people from Africa? No, it's all going to be white people. This is such pathetic baloney. In fact,
so
if you
Jared,
ask, yes.
Let's be honest and let's be fair.
I'm always honest.
That's correct.
You be honest too. Yes.
My question to you.
Yes.
And this is important.
Okay.
Why are the white liberals pursuing this path?
I don't have a good answer for you. I used to be a pretty good friend of a guy named John Brock. He was a black separatist. He didn't like white people, but he liked me because I was honest. And I agreed with his ideas about voluntary separation.
Black.
He's a black guy.
Okay.
Yes, black guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember once, we used to talk on the phone. And he says to me, Jared, you know, I think it's a great thing, but why are white people committing suicide? He could see it. He could see it in the way white people talk about their own unearned privilege and how their unconscious racism and how they're importing non-whites in huge numbers that are going to reduce them to a minority. He could see white people committing suicide. And I don't have a good answer for him. I have a number of theories. It would probably take a half an hour to go into them.
Don't you think that would have been very helpful? Because that is what I always concern myself with. Why would people do something, as you said, that is so detrimental both psychologically and physically to themselves? That I think is important.
I agree.
Could it be that because you didn't take too much interest to understand your opponents? That may be one of your faults.
Well, the fact is, I was once a liberal. I shared many of these liberal views. And I can tell you one of the reasons why it is so difficult to cease being a liberal in the United States. And it is because liberals are convinced that not only are they right and people like me are wrong, they are morally superior. Okay. They get a great thrill about thinking, oh, this Jared Taylor guy, not only is he factually wrong, whereas I'm factually 100% correct, but he is a bad person and I'm a good person. People love this feeling of moral superiority. And I read a very interesting book some years ago called Pathological Altruism. Yeah. And it talked about the feelings that people get psychologically from righteous indignation, from thinking to themselves, ooh, this person is so bad and I'm so much better. This stimulates a part of the brain called the basal ganglia. Well, the basal ganglia are precisely the parts of the brain that are stimulated by addictive drugs. And people, I believe, can get addicted to this feeling of moral superiority, of righteous indignation. And liberals love that feeling.
What is it about the white liberals that attracts majority of the white thinking, the black thinking? What is it about the white liberals that
right now, what is attractive about it is that it is the majority view. And if you want to get ahead in the United States, you don't buck the majority. You don't say the things that I do. You say the things that Hillary Clinton says, and that is how you get ahead. In any society, most people are conformist. Most people want to get ahead. Most people want to be liked. We are herd animals. We like to be part of the flock, sort of rubbing up against all the other members of the flock. If we're all out by ourselves, that's lonely for human beings.
There's something people don't know about you, and I was glad that I read this, and I think you and I have shared some in that. You said on March 13, 1961, the black boxer Floyd Patterson knocked out the Swedish challenger Ingemar Johnson.
Ingemar Johansson.
Johansson, yeah.
Ingemar Johansson.
Yeah, yes. Ingemar Johansson. To retain the world heavyweight title. I was 9 years old and knew nothing about boxing. But my eyes was caught by a newspaper picture of the victorious Patterson standing over Johnson, out cold on the canvas. I read the article and I asked my father. At that time, your parents were missionaries in Japan.
And I was living in Japan.
Where you were born and raised.
I'd probably never met a black man at that time.
That's correct, because in 1960, that would be 61, thereabout, right?
Yes.
That's correct. I went there in 1990, and it takes me 6 months to meet a black person. You said, I read the article and asked my father if this meant no one on earth could beat Patterson. He said that was right. Patterson was the best boxer in the world. I remember thinking to myself at 9 years old that this just wasn't right. Surely there must be one of our guys, a white guy, who could beat him.
Right. Now, I think that was a spontaneous, natural reaction, really, of any human being. Ingemar Johansson wasn't American, he was a Swede. I'm not Swedish.
But you're white.
But I'm white. Floyd Patterson was a black man.
An American.
An American. Same passport, same nationality as myself. But I wanted the white guy to win. Now, I'll tell you something interesting about that. I never even thought about that thought that I had until I was probably 35 or 37 years old. That was a very unfashionable, illiberal thought to have had. And I went through a typical liberal stage. I went to college when I was 16 years old. You could be liberal just by breathing the air. I think I did not permit myself to remember that reaction.
How old did you remain in Japan before you left?
I was 16.
16?
I lived there till I was 16.
Did you become a citizen?
No, they don't want people like me being
That's
citizens.
correct. Now,
No.
this story, when I read it,
Yes.
I haven't even thought about it. But when I read it, I remember coming into this country in 1994. Do you remember what was Whoopla glued to the TV at the time? O.J. Simpson.
Oh.
So
Yes,
I was in
right,
college. So O.J.
yes.
Simpson and me being in the media class, that story became one of us. How would you cover it? Which angle? That kind of thing. We were in the cafeteria the day
Yes.
the verdict was going to be announced. And I look around the room, and all the white guys were in one corner of the cafeteria, and all the white people, except we, the Africans, we had no hand in who to be. And as soon as it popped up on television, the cafeteria, the entire campus, and the black students threw a party that night, and they celebrated.
You're talking about the innocent verdict, yes.
The innocent verdict.
Yes, yes.
And
no, you didn't kill.
I saw
you didn't
two
kill.
students, tears came, and these are black students, and they don't know O.J. Simpson from anything. So
Right.
that is the same thing you felt that day. I am only protecting and rooting for my kind.
Right, right.
The hooligans in UK, the soccer hooligans they call them, it would be unfathomable to see a white English soccer hooligan rooting for Messi's Italian team over what are the teams in the UK?
The Rovers or
That's
the
correct.
Arsenal. Or,
And so
yes.
at 9 years old, you just had a natural reaction to
Yes,
say, I wish
perfectly
the
natural.
guy who looked like me won the
Exactly,
match.
exactly.
Do you have the same feeling today? Would you have the same thing? Mike Tyson is fighting, what is the name of that? Neely, the white boy. Whom will you root for?
I'd vote for the white guy.
Today?
I want the white guy to win. I don't make any apologies for it.
That's correct.
And he's part of my larger genetic family. Now, if I happen to know the black guy, he's a friend of mine, and then I might want him to win. But in pure racial abstract terms, I want the white guy to win. And I make no apologies for that. But it is only white people who are criticized if they say such a thing. Now, back when I was 9 years old, if the victor, if the guy who had beaten Ingemar Johansson had been a Turk or had been, I don't know, an Indonesian, I'm sure I would have felt the same way.
Yeah.
It wasn't because he was black. It was because he wasn't one of our guys. Now, I had never, ever been taught by my parents about race being a significant barrier. My parents were Christian missionaries. They thought all people are children of God. We are equal in God's sight, and we should treat people all entirely as God's children.
So you were raised by Christian
Yes,
ministers until the age of 16 in Japan.
In Japan.
And that's why you acquired quite a fluent Japanese.
That's right. But my point is, most people, if they read that story just the way you did, they would say to themselves, oh, well, his white parents had instilled this anti-black prejudice. Not at all. This was something that bubbled up from inside of me without any kind of fostering environmentally. Yeah. Remember, I was living among Japanese people all the time. I had a sense of being white on account of that, but it was not a negative sense or any kind of hostile sense. I was good friends with my Japanese classmates, and this was just a natural reaction. And I would bet you that probably 99% of white people in the circumstances similar to mine, no matter what their genetic makeup were, would have had a similar reaction. Well, he's our guy. And that guy, he's not one of our guys, and he knocked him flat. That's not right. And these days, of course, most black people in the United States, they're utterly unabashed about, well, of course I root for the black guy. They make no apologies. It's only white people who would have to apologize. I'll tell you another story. I can't remember how long ago it was, but the World Soccer Cup of Women, the final was played in Los Angeles, and it was between the Chinese and the Americans.
I remember that.
Well, that was back in the 90s. Well, how long ago was that? That was a long time ago. In any case, there were two communities of Chinese in Los Angeles, the nationalists and the communists. They generally hated each other. But for this final, they booked a whole area of seats all together, and they got together to root for the Chinese team. Because whether they were nationalists, whether they were American citizens, whether they were communists, they had one thing in common. They were Chinese and they wanted the Chinese team to win.
Oh.
And it's the same whenever the U.S. national team plays the Mexican team, for example, in soccer, whatever it was. You can be a U.S. citizen, but if you are Mexican or any kind of Hispanic, you're rooting for the Mexican team.
So one of the things I've heard quite
Yes.
very frequently from the white liberal side, especially during the season of elections, is that yes, we are sympathetic to minorities, blacks, because they don't have the same wealth and opportunities and access as black people. So we are trying hard to vote for the Democratic Party because we, the white liberals, would like to make sure that black people,
Succeed.
have
Have equal
succeed.
yes.
Now, is that a genuine feeling? Or
can't-
what
I
is the
can't-
damage in that kind of thinking?
Well, I cannot read their minds.
Let's take it on the surface.
I beg your pardon?
Let's take it on the surface.
On a what? On the selfish point of view?
No, surface. The surface of it. Just
On the surface, on the
Yes.
surface. I think most people are sincere in what they say. They believe in what they say. Most people would be very uncomfortable spending their lives outright lying. Human beings don't work that way unless they're psychopaths. And apparently maybe 4% of the population is psychopaths, and a lot of them are politicians, it's true. But most people, they're just not comfortable saying things all the time they don't believe. So I think most people believe in what they say. And when liberal whites say, well, black people have been oppressed and it's our fault, and therefore we have to do everything possible to make things better for them, so ultimately we get equal outcomes, I think they genuinely believe that. Now, all of these people who say, we need to make it possible for black people to advance. When have you ever heard of a person high up in a company who says, and I'm going to resign? And so a black person or a Hispanic person or an Eskimo can take my place. Never. It's always some other poor schlub of a white guy who doesn't get the job so that he can show you just how wonderful and virtuous he is. This is all part of this terrible
Do
hypocrisy.
you think that sentiment towards black people from the white liberals,
Yes.
in our judgment,
What about it? I think it's I think they.
is genuine, you're saying?
I think it is. Now,
But is
they
that a
deceive
good?
themselves.
Yes, go ahead.
They deceive themselves because they don't seem to realize that if this sentiment persists, if we really have built a society in which we want every single race to have equal outcomes, no matter whatever differences there might be in ability or dedication or persistence in different racial groups, then they have built in automatic headwinds against their own people. That's what all of this business of DEI is all about: diversity, equity, inclusion. How do you get diversity? How do you get equity? How do you get inclusion? By having fewer white people. That's the long and the short of it. And to have white people shouting this from the rooftops, under the Biden administration.
All right. Now we're going to go to the crux of the matter.
Okay. Well, we'll set Biden aside for now. But
we come back to it.
the crux of the matter.
Yes.
Yes.
So we woke up next week, Monday.
Yes.
Jared Taylor has been nominated by the Trump administration to be the Secretary of Culture and Immigration. Now, you can't be an advocate without saying in your head, if I were at the helm of affairs, I would do something to slow down the suicide.
Yes.
What would you do?
Well, interestingly enough, I would do many of the things already undertaken by the Trump administration.
Namely?
Seal the border.
Okay.
Under Biden, of course, in the worst months, 300,000 illegal immigrants just marched across the southern border. No vetting, no nothing. Come one, come all. And then they'd go on welfare, they'd be put in these housing places. Suicide, complete suicide. I mean, even aside from any kind of racial consciousness and wanting to live in a majority white country, letting these people in utterly unvetted, who knows how many criminals there are, how many low IQ morons there are, who are going to be beggars, who are going to be rapists. We don't even care. Come on in. Suicide. This is something that is inconceivable in any other country.
So immigration is one.
Yes, seal the border.
Second.
Now, Donald Trump has gone so far as to essentially eliminate the refugee program. Under Joe Biden, there were 125,000 slots for refugees. Every single one of them non-white, by the way. There's some they were from countries that, Bhutan, for example, or Syria, or Afghanistan, countries a lot of Americans have never even heard of. But they were coming into the country because they were legitimate refugees. Donald Trump has said, no, we're going to have only 7,500, and they're all going to be white. This is an astonishing turnaround from any previous administration. That's a good thing, too. Donald Trump has also tried to obliterate DEI in the government. In the government today, there are no celebrations for Martin Luther King Day. Did you know that? This was something that was almost the 11th commandment. You have to celebrate Martin Luther King.
What was wrong with that?
Excuse me?
What was wrong with celebrating Martin Luther King Day?
Well, boy, Martin Luther King. You don't want to talk about Martin Luther King?
No, just
okay.
What was wrong with the celebration of
Martin Luther King was a man who worked very hard for black interests. Mm-hmm. He clothed those black interests in the language of equal rights. And there was a time in the United States when blacks did not have equal rights and equal access. And he always said, equality, that's what we want. But as soon as the Civil Rights Acts were passed, Civil Rights Act of 1964, Voting Rights Act of 1965, without pausing to catch his breath, he started wanting compensatory treatment, special treatment for blacks. Now, here's a guy whose interests were black people. That was his real number one interest. Why should we celebrate a guy whose interests were exclusively for black people?
Come on, Jared,
Why?
but at the time you're talking about Martin Luther King. Who wouldn't want to do anything for black people?
Well,
there was segregation, there was discrimination, there was lynching, there was,
lynching had pretty much ended by then.
Okay.
Yes. And segregation, legal segregation existed only in a part of the country.
Yes, segregated educational systems.
Okay, that's fine.
So
that's fine.
what was wrong for him to say this are afflicted people?
Right. There is nothing wrong for him to do that for his people. However, as a consequence of his having done that, does he become the only human being or the only person aside from Jesus Christ whose birthday is celebrated as a national holiday? Does it make him that important? Really? He's as important as Jesus Christ, so we celebrate his birthday as a national holiday? This is cuckoo. No.
So who got his birthday enacted as a national holiday?
Excuse me?
How did his birthday become a national holiday?
Oh, Congress voted it. There were a few southern states who opposed it.
Under whose regime was that?
I beg your pardon?
Under
Reagan, I believe it was Ronald Reagan who finally, Ronald Reagan didn't like it, but no, this was something that America decided. And now we have Juneteenth, yet another black holiday, another cuckoo black holiday. What are we celebrating? The fact that black people didn't realize until months after the war that slavery had been abolished? Why are we even celebrating that? That's almost celebrating the ignorance of black people. In any case, if you're going to have a multiracial country, if the idea is we're all going to hold hands and be Americans and dismantle any kind of racial consciousness, that was the whole idea of the civil rights movement. We're going to make race not matter. We're all going to be Americans. Then we should not be celebrating a black man who says race certainly matters. It matters the most to me, and now that we've got equality, we want more than equality. We want special treatment. That should not be something to celebrate.
So you're not in any way undermining the work he did as a civil rights leader?
For him to try to advance the interests of his people, that's perfectly understandable. I have no quarrel with that at all. My quarrel is with an America that is so concerned about its past shortcomings that it makes him the patron saint of the United States, despite all of his moral failings, his plagiarism, his adultery, his foul language, his communist sentiments, probably the fact that he really wasn't an Orthodox Christian by any stretch of the imagination either. We brush all of this aside and make him more important than any single American who ever lived. That's what we say when we have Martin Luther King Day and no other person who has celebrated as an individual. He is known, really, for having said only one thing, and he didn't even believe it. This idea of being judged by the content of my character rather than the color of my skin. If you really think that, you're not going to push for affirmative action, which is what he immediately started doing after he got equal rights. So I understand his desire to promote the interests of his people. But to make him the patron saint of America is to paint white people as devils who can never be trusted.
Let's go back to your advocacy.
Okay.
So,
yes.
If this is the closing of this conversation, and you want to remind the viewers of
yes.
what the American Renaissance stands for, in order to make it clear today that you said in the beginning, I'm not a white supremacist,
no.
I'm not a white nationalist, I'm not even a separatist.
Well, I believe in voluntary separation, complete
okay.
freedom of association.
Yes.
And to me, this is an obtainable outcome.
Describe how that would be.
In the United States today, the United States government, all parts of government are in the business of encouraging people to come together whether they want to or not. School integration. You have to integrate your company. The idea of saying, well, you know, I want to do business only with white people or only with black people. Oh, you can't do that. Voluntary association is a profoundly important civil right. We do not have that. If I want to say, I want to live in a community where everyone is rich, white, and good looking. If that's my preference, oh, that's really terrible. But for most non-white people, to wish to live in a society or go to a church, for example, that reflects your race, your heritage, that's perfectly okay. You know, we have about 10,000 Asian churches in the United States, overwhelmingly Asian. And practically every black denomination church is overwhelmingly black. But if you have a white church and you want to keep it white, no, that's no good.
So back to the one line.
Just let me finish this. We have to, in the United States, get over the idea that if white people wish to live in a culturally and racially coherent setting themselves, that there's anything wrong with that. Now, I'm not saying they all have to live that way. If Americans want to live in this multi-culti mishmash, God bless them. It's up to them. But for those who wish to live amongst themselves, celebrating their own culture and holding their own destiny in their own hands, they should have that opportunity without any kind of
So
moral
this your last
recovery.
sentiment is, you said, one, you are against the government making it almost mandatory that
Yes.
people
Yes.
should move in and close
Right.
on other people. I want to get the picture clear
Yes.
for my audience.
Right.
So in one sentence, I, Jared Taylor of the American Renaissance, I am advocating for what in one sentence?
Well, if I have to put it in one sentence,
Yes.
complete freedom of association
Okay.
and the recognition that white people as a group have legitimate interests and the right to organize to defend those interests.
Now let me ask you, who really frustrates you? Is it the immigrants who come here, or is it your government?
What frustrates me is white people. White people still basically run the show.
But when you say white people, that is too
Liberals.
broad. Okay,
Well,
now
yeah,
you got,
yeah.
okay.
The ones who are doing something unprecedented in the history of the world, who are building this society based on the idea that they and their ancestors are all sort of inherently guilty, that white people are responsible if non-white people don't succeed at the same rate as white people, and that to defend their own culture, their own civilization is somehow illegitimate. No majority of people in the history of the world has ever done that. No majority of people has ever said, okay, here's a country our ancestors built, but yeah, come on in. You can take this chunk. You guys, you can take that chunk. And if we become a minority and a despised minority, well, that's how you celebrate diversity.
If somebody
Nobody
asks
has ever
you,
done
Jared,
that before.
if somebody asks you to make a statement,
Yes,
okay?
right.
about the United States of America and
Yes.
its participation in slavery, discrimination, segregation, whatever has happened and did happen, that is, this is not 1,000 years ago.
Right.
What do you say to
What
that?
do I say to that? Let's talk about slavery. Every society in the world has had slavery. White people are the people who abolished slavery all around the world. They shoved abolition down the throats of Africans and Arabs who wanted to maintain it. There are Arab countries that didn't disallow slavery until, what, 1950s, 1960s? And you know, Arabs enslaved a lot more sub-Saharan Africans than ever crossed the Atlantic.
I wouldn't say because my neighbor, I will not say because my neighbor engaged in a homicide. That
Right.
should also excuse me engaging in one. I'm asking that you must make a specific statement when it comes to your country, the United States of America.
Well-
For the liberals who are saying we did something wrong, we are ashamed of, against black people, not against me, against African Americans, I'm asking what would your contribution or sentiments be around that subject?
I'd say get over it. I didn't do it, and you weren't a victim. And black people today living in the United
The
States.
history, I mean, not the people who are here.
Well,
So when the
no,
Arabs were refusing to engage in slavery, when the English,
well, refusing to, you mean abolish slavery?
refusing to abolish slavery,
Right.
and when the English were pushing to abolish slavery,
Yes.
if America was not involved in slavery at that time, but was planning to go into slavery, you wouldn't say yes because everybody is doing it. It's fine, my country can do it. You wouldn't say that, would you?
At the time?
Yeah.
I don't know what I would have thought. I mean, if I were a person of that time, probably, well, even most Southern Americans had real second thoughts about slavery. Thomas Jefferson, for example, the way he describes slavery, he says, we have the wolf by the ears. We can neither hold him nor let him go. Imagine having a wolf by the ears. That's a very dangerous situation. This is slavery.
What is a wolf?
The wolf is slavery.
Okay.
The wolf is slavery.
Okay.
This is very no good. But if we let him go, then what's going to happen? Because Thomas Jefferson thought that it was going to be impossible for whites and blacks to live under the same government. And so he said, this is a terrible thing, but what do we do with the black people? We can't keep them as slaves. Thomas Jefferson's solution was to send them outside of the country. He was a big proponent of colonization, as it was called. But as far as slavery is concerned, this is something that, yes, my ancestors, some of them were slaveholders, but I'm not guilty of that. In fact, you were pointing out, say it turns out my great-grandfather killed your great-grandfather. I mean, murder is worse than slavery. Does that mean I owe you anything?
Murder is not worse than slavery.
Oh, of course it is.
No, I don't think that any.
Oh, come on.
No, Jared, I wouldn't compare the two. There's
Well-
no trauma suffered after death, but if you live in slavery, you could have trauma.
Well,
So I wouldn't compare the two. Is what I'm saying.
well, okay, whatever.
Murdering someone or
yes.
being in slavery, they're two separate things that we shouldn't
Okay.
use it and say murder is.
All
So
right,
I'm
but
not saying you're wrong. It's your opinion, but I'm saying
my
that.
only point is guilt does not transfer down one generation. There's no legal theory that says no matter what my great-grandfather did to you, I have to pay you. And yet somehow...
Oh, you're a Christian. God punished all of us for Adam and Eve's sin.
What's that?
You're a Christian.
Well,
God punished all of us for the sin of Adam and Eve.
well, does that really mean that white people have to pay for the sins of their ancestors? How come Arabs don't have to pay for the sins of their ancestors?
Well,
How
let
come
the
no
slaves
other
who are
group
still
has to
living in
pay?
the Arab world
Yeah.
put that pressure, but I wouldn't speak for that. And I'm not saying in any way or form, I'm not saying that, oh, America should do anything special because it once held people slave. I'm not saying that.
Well, good.
I do not like, entangling myself in certain conversation. I don't have the credibility. However, all I'm saying is if the liberals
Right.
are feeling guilty for
Yeah.
something they wish never was a stain on the history of this
Right.
country, you don't even sympathize with that at all?
It has no implications for how we should behave today. None. Zero. They didn't do it. The people who are alive today had nothing to do with slavery. And the function of constantly talking about slavery, the result of that is to make black people hate white people. Constantly reminding them of slavery. Look what these white people did long ago. They enslaved you, they lynched you, they whipped you, they segregated you. We say this over and over and
I've
over.
said
Black
that
people,
many times in my episodes,
is
that the
crazy.
only thing that comes out of this repetition
Yeah.
is letting young black kids who could live in this country, including Latinos and everybody, and be free and happy
Yes.
with a new seed of Americans. They will look back, and then it generates anger. It is
Of
true.
course
And
it
nobody
does.
wants to be reminded you are the way you are because of this. We did it to you. I agree with you completely on
Yes.
that one. I
So
don't like it.
That is the function of constant jabber about slavery. You can't go to Monticello or to Mount Vernon, where the presidents lived, and everything there is now about slavery. They don't talk about slaves. They're enslaved people, of course. They're not slaves. But imagine, I mean, if you, from kindergarten on, all of society is telling you, you know, it's true, your people are poor. Your people are likely to be in jail. Your people are likely to be on welfare. You know why? It's those nasty people over there. They did all of these things to you, and whether or not they know it or not, they're still inherently white supremacists. They want to just grind you into the dirt. It's a wonder to me there isn't more
So to
just
help
random
understand
killing.
deeply, all right,
of
if
you know.
you are a black person anywhere in the world,
Yes.
at an airport, you're a black person, and you turn around and say, I'm Japanese, people will turn and look at you twice. If
Three
you're an
times.
Arab, and
Yes.
anywhere in the world you
Yeah.
say, I'm Chinese, people will look at you twice.
Right.
We know that. You
Right.
lived in Japan for 16 years, but you wouldn't say, I'm Japanese. But in the United States, even if you don't look like a human being, and you declare at
Okay.
any airport, I'm an American,
Yes.
nobody will look at you twice.
Right.
Everybody get accepted here if you are born and raised here, birthright citizenship you are. So let me ask you,
Yes.
African Americans, not me, because I'm just a naturalized citizen.
Right.
So if you were traveling on a crowded train on a Monday morning, and there's a group of black gentlemen saying, "Oh, we formed this organization to protect the dispossession of black people in America, to protect our heritage and our rights,"
Right.
would you look at them twice?
What do you mean? I mean, would I be surprised to meet
Yes.
such people? No. I mean, that's what the way I would say the majority of educated black people think, is that they have to be constantly protecting their heritage, their rights, because they're surrounded by all of these malicious white people, which is complete baloney. Most of the time,
So
when people talk about,
the reason I'm asking is the
Yeah.
American Renaissance mission
right,
is to help protect and slow down the suicide, according to you.
yes,
So if the black people have the right to feel that way and start an organization to advocate,
by all means.
how do the two live in the same country?
That's a good question. And that's why I said I want voluntary separation. I don't think it's possible to get black people and white people to agree on why black murder rates are higher than white murder rates. I don't think it's possible. Too many black people are convinced somehow it's a legacy of slavery or Jim Crow or whatever it is. Somehow it's white people's fault. You're not going to convince black people that they are responsible for what they're up to unless, I believe, they are in their own societies, where they have their own government, their own courts, their own education. Only then can I think, only then can black people really be free of this chip
You
on
would
their
support
shoulder.
that?
I beg your pardon?
Will you support that?
Of course, of course.
So what is the
Look,
difference between Malcolm X, Louis Farrakhan, Marcus Garvey, and is it Todd Simpson? Inez, something Inez. I've forgotten the last name.
Ta-Nehisi Coates, is that what you're thinking of?
Yeah.
No, okay.
And
Well,
is that the same kind of
the three people you
separatist,
just mentioned,
Yeah.
Malcolm X originally was a separatist, but
Yeah.
after he went to Mecca and he found blue-eyed
That they can live to-
Muslims,
all
he
right.
decided, well, maybe
we can live together?
maybe we can live together. Before, he used to say, the only thing I like integrated is coffee.
Coffee.
That's a pretty good
Got a
line.
character.
But Marcus Garvey was the only legitimate one. Marcus Garvey, what was it? Rise up, you noble people. He wanted Africans and black people to work and to have their own initiative, work for their own benefit, and not depend on anybody else, and not blame anybody else. I think Marcus Garvey was a truly great black man. Marcus Garvey had the idea of independent black nations that set their own rules, policed their own misbehavior, and worked for their own greatness. And I say, God bless you. That is the way I believe black people should think, and that's how they should act. To live in a society where every one of their failures, they're encouraged by white people to blame on somebody else. That's not being a man. That's not growing up. That is being treated like a child your entire life. That is no way to live, and I think if black people had any real pride, they would spit on the idea of living in a society like that. They should want real independence and real freedom. And they can't get that living in this society the way it's structured. Impossible.
Very good.
Yes.
I think many people are going to pick on this point really and want to. You agree that the way this place is structured?
It's terrible for black people.
Which aspect of it?
The idea that we treat black people like children. We say to them, it doesn't make any difference how hard you try. White people are going to hold you back no matter what. What a way to be brought up. What a way to live. We tell them, this society has persecuted you for 400 years and will continue to persecute you. Why would anyone want to live in
Okay, then give me the
situation?
blueprint. Give me a complete description of an ideal America where there is a black separatist group, but living in America with all its rights and privileges.
Well, it would be a difficult thing to arrange, but if everyone agreed, well, yes, we should go our own way, then it could be brought about. Small enclaves to begin with, larger, but you asked me about Louis Farrakhan.
Yeah.
Louis Farrakhan. That guy is a complete phony. You know, The Final Call is their newspaper. I haven't seen it for a while. But it used to be that in the back page, on the inside, it always said, these are our demands. And it said, how can you expect the sons of the slave owners and the sons of the slaves to live together in harmony? They need to separate. His idea, he had various ideas. Give me all the black people in America and I'll go back to Africa. Or give me a chunk of America and all the black people live there and you white honkies, you can just do whatever you like. Now, remember the Million Man March? I can't remember what year that was.
96.
96. Well, good
if
for
I'm
you.
wrong, 95, 96.
Okay,
Anyway, I
very
know,
good.
yeah.
Very good. He had all of the world's television cameras beamed on him.
Oh, yeah.
He had congressmen sitting on the dais with him, all black, of course. He had the biggest audience he'd ever had in his life.
That's true.
And I remember thinking, okay, Louis, baby, separation, talk about it. No. He chickened out. He talked about this great spaceship up in the sky and all of this goofy stuff. I thought, what a coward, what a phony. This was his chance to talk about a true destiny of greatness for his people, and he flubbed it. Because I think in his bones, Louis Farrakhan knew perfectly well he's much better off living with white people, keeping whitey on the hop, always reminding them of slavery and how bad white people are. White people come and apologize. What else can we do for you next, Minister Farrakhan? He realizes he's much better off that way. And I think a lot of black people realize that too.
In your line of work for the last 36 years,
I beg your pardon? What?
In your line of work for
Yes.
the last 36 years with the American Renaissance, have you had any black organization or individuals who somehow support?
Certainly.
What?
We hold conferences every year. We have had black people come to our conferences. There was a black woman who used to come every year. She was a great tall woman. She was about 6'3". Everybody liked her. I don't know why she stopped coming, but everyone thought it was very interesting. There are plenty of non-whites who agree that white people have the right to their own societies, to their own culture, to have a certain amount of pride in their heritage. There are many non-whites. I have a whole file of email messages I've gotten from around the world, from people in India, from people in China, from people in Africa, who say, American Renaissance, don't give up. The world needs proud white people. It's white people who don't understand this.
How does the country benefit? Let's say, for example,
yes.
I don't want to call it a doctrine, but the American Renaissance mission.
Yes.
Let's say, like you said, oh, it's accepted, people understand it now, and they help make it come about, which is voluntary separation.
Yes.
Let's say, just like the Chinese have in Chinatown, they don't bother anybody. If you go there, it's fine.
Right.
Black people decided, first of all, Which one is the biggest population of people that you believe have not segregated themselves? The Japanese live in Little Tokyo in California. The Chinese live in Chinatown. Even the Koreans in Flatbush, New York, they have created a community for themselves. So are the Jews. So who is the one who has not segregated himself or lived separately? Yes.
Of course. Even white people segregate themselves. Just like Hillary Clinton.
Yes.
They just lie to themselves about it.
Mm-hmm.
When people leave California, white people leave California, and they end up perhaps in Idaho, or they go to some part of Northern California, or they go to Oregon, and you ask them, why did they go? And they said, oh, there was pollution, there was crime, there was traffic. They almost never are honest enough to say, my children were minorities in the local school district. They're not honest. They won't say, at the PTA meeting, we had to have interpreters of Farsi and Spanish and Haitian Creole. And the teachers were spending all their time teaching English rather than mathematics.
So you think the last frontier, the group of people in the last frontier that you would help, or they have not even thought about it, to separate themselves voluntarily, is black people then?
Oh, black people separate themselves all the time.
No, we mean real separation, as you see with...
I see. Yeah, I see. Well, I think deep in their hearts, most black people, if you really sat them down and made them think about it, would realize that if it were entirely up to them to keep the lights on, to keep the sewers working, to keep the jet engines maintained, that they're better off living with white people. I think that's probably the conclusion most black people would arrive at. Mm-hmm. Now, in fact, when you hear the way some black people talk about whites, just the utter contempt with which they describe us, and I could give you example after example. Ta-Nehisi Coates, for example. He's this great genius, MacArthur genius. He wrote this book, I think, Letters to His Son, whatever it's called, Between Something and My Son. Ta-Nehisi Coates.
Oh, yeah.
Ta-Nehisi Coates.
Yes.
One of his, I think I'm not even paraphrasing here, I'm pretty much quoting him accurately. He says, I would like to say that the day will come when the people who consider themselves white give up their demon religion of white supremacy and become human. But I cannot see that day ever coming. What is this? Here's a guy saying white people can't even become human. And yet white people, they pet him and they whoop over him, they slobber over him, they give him one award after another. What kind of thing is this? Now, a guy who thinks that about white people, shouldn't he want to separate if we're that bad? Or somebody like Brittany Cooper. I don't know if you know who she is. She's a tenured professor at Rutgers University.
Rutgers, yeah.
Yes. She was on a panel and talking about just how bad white people are. And she says, well, the solution, we may just have to take the motherfuckers out. Sorry to use such language, but I'm just quoting her.
Sure.
She's talking about exterminating all of us. That's okay. She didn't lose her job. I mean, she's still honored and tenured professor. I could quote you many, many such. Now, why don't they therefore look for independence? Why don't they say, we need our area, our universities, we need to be separate from these horrible white people? And if I said, look, if we're that bad, just let us go our own way, do you think they'd agree? No, they'd find some reason not to agree.
You'll be canceled. I've heard enough, and yes. I'm still thinking, Jared, is it possible, two things, that if this is your message, in fact, I was quite pleased with this, because I shared that sentiment. You said, if a people will continue to look at one group and treat them like children by saying, oh, poor you, we are sorry, you are not doing any good to that group. No. Now, like you said from the beginning, humans by nature are herd. We like to flock together. Exactly. If the message is popular, I'll come along with it. Nobody has the time to stop to think, what damage is it doing to us?
Right.
I've said it so many times to the young people that I mentor. Once you begin to feel sorry for yourself, anywhere you go, people will stay away from you because you have no confidence to make them want to work with you. So what you're saying is, One is you're talking about slow down the dispossession of this country because whites created their country. They should be able to remain the majority.
Yes.
But the problem, Jared, that you have not provided a solution. There is no way, even the number of immigrants you have now in the United States, you're not going to give more money to the Planned Parenthood to nuke everyone.
Well,
What are you going to do to stop the production and the birth rate and everything?
as I said, it would be impractical and immoral to say, okay, we're going to take the whole country back. In 1960, we were 90% of the population. We're going to turn back the clock and become 90% or maybe 100%. That's not practical,
Possible.
and
Okay.
it's not moral.
Okay.
As I said, there are certain people here who have a claim on North America, and you have to respect that claim.
Okay, but what to do to slow down the suicide is what?
Well, obviously, stop immigration
I see.
and also expel every single illegal immigrant.
Okay,
Expel people who lied on their naturalization requests.
Right.
And I think that it would be possible to build in incentives for people to go, even if they were naturalized citizens.
okay.
Also, get rid of birthright citizenship. This thing is cuckoo, crazy, practically there's still a few countries who have
No,
that.
birthright means that the parents are not Americans just because you were born here. They came across the border.
That's right.
And if you are born here, you are an American. Okay.
What this means is if a pregnant Guatemalan woman staggers across the border and makes it to an American hospital and has a baby, that baby's a U.S. citizen, even if she has no right to be in the United States.
Well, if I came on vacation to your house for 5 days and while I was there, I gave birth to my son in your house, you better make sure that he's included in the will.
Yes, exactly. Well, that's a good way of putting it.
Yeah.
Excellent way of putting it. This is nuts.
Okay.
This is nuts. And there are millions of white people who will say, well, that's America. We have to do it that way. Why they think that way, I don't know. But in any case, I recognize it is a difficult problem. The idea of separation in any substantial way is not easy. But as Abraham Lincoln said when he was talking about colonizing black people outside of the United States, where there's a will, there is a way. If enough people agree, then we can arrange separation, at least at the local level, and gradually expanding areas. Now, I'm not saying, well, in France or Germany, in Europe, they talk about remigration, sending immigrants back. Well, it's too late for that here in the United States. There is already...
You think Europe can do it?
I think they can, yes,
Now,
depending on the country.
Listening to you as a black man or as an African, let me be very clear, black, kind of... I haven't found anything offensive. So I'm here sitting down and thinking, if white people are that smart, which they've said they are, how come majority of you have made these dumb decisions that now is causing suicide slowly? However, here's what I'm thinking.
Yes.
Jared, it's possible that one, you have a very bad skill of delivering your message, or people don't like you for your wardrobe. It may be one of this. Because I haven't seen anything to really vehemently disagree and be angered or offended in what you say you're doing. Now, I watched your 60 Minutes ABC interview.
Yes.
As a journalist, it was painful. She said, just merely you saying what you have said now with last 45 minutes, that look, I'm only talking about let's go slow so that we don't sink the entire ship, is what you're saying. She said, don't you think that saying this would offend black people? Why didn't she say it would offend Latinos? She didn't say it will offend Asians, but all these people are also Americans, right? She didn't say it will offend Middle East. Why did she say it will offend black people?
Because black-white relations have been the most prominent and significant racial fault line in American history.
That's true.
Now, we have had white and Indian relations ever since 1607, Jamestown.
Yeah.
But it is the black and white conflict that directly or indirectly led to the Civil War, largest casualties of any war, more than all of them put together, all the riots, urban riots. The black and white dynamic is really the fundamental racial problem in the United States. None of the others are equally important. Now, To me, it was idiotic after having had a difficult minority in the form of blacks to then say, okay, well now we're going to get Hispanics, we're going to get Asians, we're going to get subcontinental Indians, and we set the example for the rest of the world. Look at Canada. Canada's committing suicide even more rapidly than we are. Come on, Sikhs,
Every
Asians.
day I wake up,
What's
I'm
that?
seeing news clips from Canada. I've seen Sikhs from India.
Yes.
Now, like almost they feel like they're at home with swords in public place.
Yes.
I'm not saying
Well,
living
there's
in somebody's
Kirpans.
country.
They're, they're about this long. But anyway.
It was
yes.
Gary Davis, right? Gary Davis in 1972 when he wrote his 13 Principles of Human Rights. You remember Gary Davis, who started the WSA, World Service Authority Passport, the passport without countries?
Gary Davis. No,
Yes.
never heard of him. No.
No kidding.
Sorry. Yeah.
I was one of the first recipients of the
World
WSA
passport?
Yeah, world passport.
Who honors it? Probably nobody.
Nobody. I couldn't cross the Nigerian border with a WSA passport.
I bet not.
Anyway, he fought a good fight. He went to the United Nations and he wrote the 13 principles of what human rights are.
Okay.
I agree with him. He included immigration is a human right. Humans always migrate to one place and all that.
No
However,
good.
what
Yes.
is not human right
Yes.
is that you come to my country,
Right.
you are free to migrate and ask me for residency and I'll give it to you. But to try to reorganize the furniture of my house is not human right. It's not even a privilege. But moving around, yes, we should consider it a human right because it's in our nature. We've been moving like this right from the time we were created. But if you go to, like for example, Konishiki and Akebono, for those of you who knows sumo very well, these two powerful small wrestlers came to Japan at the age of, Konishiki came at the age of 17. Akebono came later on, I believe. And they proudly represent these thousands of years of tradition. And yet they were not given citizenship by the Japanese government. But they never go to the small rink with a Hawaiian or American flag, showing that we are Americans. They embraced Japan, they married Japanese women, and they lived in Japan, and they supported everything. So yes, even if countries should open their doors for migrants to come in, it's fine, we all do it. But what is becoming a problem is when they arrive and then want to reorganize the furniture of the place. I think that is one of the concerns you have also about.
The whole Konishiki Akebono question is an interesting one, but let me get back to the whole question of migration as a human right.
Right.
I say not just no.
Okay.
I say hell no.
Okay.
Because it's not just a question of rearranging the furniture. Let's imagine that you, say 20 years ago, you want to emigrate to Sweden.
Yeah.
In those days, Sweden had a welfare system. And according to that welfare system, the government looked after you very carefully. They called it cradle to grave. If you didn't have a job, it looked after you. If you committed a crime, it tried very hard to rehabilitate you. You don't have the same kind of welfare system in Sweden anymore. You know why? One of the reasons is so many people came from around the world that did not work. Their mere presence made that impossible.
Then
because
if hell no to immigration as a human right, rebut me.
It's
no,
not,
okay,
it's
rebut
not
me.
a human right at
If
all.
hell no to immigration as a human right,
Yes.
then how did the Europeans end up here?
How'd they end up here? It was not immigration, it was conquest. They took it by force.
Not the first ones.
What? What do you mean?
You mean the first group of Europeans or English people who left the monarchy to say we are seeking for a free and a better land?
Yeah, they took it from the Indians.
Well,
the rules were different in those days.
Okay,
People
so
just took things by force.
They took things by force. So
Yes.
you're saying that form of even conquest was wrong, or that is different from immigration?
Oh, it's completely different from immigration.
How is it different from immigration?
How is
Why
it?
do they describe this country as a country of immigrants? Because those who came here, they didn't just take it and go back like the Mongols did, Jared.
This is a nation, my ancestors were not immigrants. My ancestors were pioneers, explorers, builders. There was no country to come to. The idea that people who came here in
So you are
1607 were
saying-
immigrants? No.
Okay, so you're
But-
saying the word immigrant means that people who move to an established country, where there's a
Yes.
process for you to become an immigrant or a
Exactly.
resident.
Exactly.
Now that is clarified.
The idea, a nation of immigrants, what baloney. Every nation, at some point, it should have the option of stopping being a nation of immigrants if a bunch of immigrants have come in. The idea that because we had immigrants, we always have to have immigrants, this is just nuts. But the rules were different. Now, I'm not saying it was correct. In the Jamestown colony, The Jamestown colony is a very interesting history. When the English came, the Spaniards had already been in America for 100 years, and they had a reputation of being very cruel to the Indians. The English, they said, we're not like the Spaniards. We are better people. We're going to come in peace. And when they came to Jamestown, they very carefully found a place that was uninhabited. They thought it was unclaimed. And the guy who was running the place, his name was Wingfield. He was the top dog of the Jamestown colony. He said, because we come in peace, we will build no walls. We will not have any training in weapons. Mm-hmm. Well, they were not even there for 2 weeks. The Jamestown colony wasn't even 2 weeks old before the local Indians decided to attack and exterminate the entire colony. And if it hadn't been for an alert colonist who went on board one of the boats the colonists came in and fired off the cannon and panicked the Indians, that would have been the end of the Jamestown colony. And then there were 2 subsequent occasions over the years after the Jamestown colony was established when the Indians decided, we've got to try one more time. Get rid of these English. And on the first occasion, they killed about 300 of them. And on the second occasion, they killed about 500. And finally, the English got angry, and they went on the warpath against the Indians and pretty much exterminated them. But it was strictly a power play. It was not immigration. It was conquest. And the important aspect of it is that the Indians resisted with every possible force they had. They tried to exterminate the English. So this has nothing to do with immigration. This is conquest and resistance to conquest.
Well, history is a very tricky thing. You can look at it and use it for good. You can look at it and use it for evil. Number 2, the interpretation of history, since it passes from one hand to another and to another and to another. But in my travels and living in many countries, there is something in me that is very stubborn, that I still think that the United States has a unique position. The storm goes up and it always comes down again.
The storm goes up?
Yeah, the storm would go up. You'll think there's an upheaval. You'll think this is the end of the United States. We had the 60s, the war, protest, and pacifist versus war. And then we had the hippies movement, and then we had and we thought, oh, this is going to be the life of everyone. And the country has a way of calming the storm, whether it's natural, whether it's inbuilt, I'm not sure. But I think also what we are experiencing today, it's also a phase. And maybe.
Well, certainly, nations do go through phases.
Yes.
And the United States will survive as a landmass. There's no question about that.
Right.
I think that the idea of the United States just completely disappearing is very unlikely. But what I care about is the survival of my people and my civilization.
Oh, yes. And I think anyone who is honest enough to hear somebody with their sentiments and being honest about it, and we should encourage these types of discussions, I've always said. It doesn't change it, whether you call Jared names like a supremacist and a racist, wouldn't change the fact that what is going to be is going to be.
And also, the United States today is probably more divided in terms of politics, of race, of culture, than at any time since before the Civil War. If you look at the way Democrats and Republicans think about each other, the kinds of motives they attribute to each other, there is a deep, deep hostility.
Yes,
and if we continue in this way, maybe the United States really will fall apart. I do not anticipate a full-scale civil war of armies meeting in the field.
Either.
No, that's not going to happen.
But
the kind of hostility that Democrats feel for Republicans in Congress and locally, it's never been this bad before in the United States. It's getting worse.
Yeah.
How will this be resolved? I really don't know. Donald Trump, of course, is doing some things that I think I would do if I were president. But he is probably the most hated man in American history.
No,
I don't think anyone's been hated more.
No, not at all.
And this is not a good thing, not a good thing. You can't build a society out of groups that are so fundamentally at odds with each other, hate each other, and are hostile. A nation cannot survive that way.
And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, you've heard it like I promised you. I will lead the conversation so you can hear it from the horse's own mouth. I've tried to push back and just get you more out of Jared, and I don't think he has disappointed. I've read his books, and the guy sounds just like Donald Trump sounded in 1983 about China and about NATO. He has been saying this since he was 54 years old, that's Donald Trump, and he said the same thing in 2016. 35 years ago, he said the same things you've heard today in his books. For me, I say that is the honesty as much as you can get from anyone. So go to the comment section and let me know what you think, for those of you who have read, who have heard straight from the horse's own mouth, what you think about Jared Taylor, and does he deserve the names he's called, and the pushback and the violence and cancelled in many banks and stuff like that. I want to hear your voice. And if you think that I should bring him back more for more talks like this, we need to repair our relationships in the United States of America. For those of us who are natural citizens, birthright citizens, original citizens, whatever citizenship it is, we need to work to repair it, because for now, this, I think, it's one of the most progressive places that you can have a true human right and opportunities, the United States of America. I thank you all guys for watching. This is CPR Zanu Project Rethink. Please subscribe, follow, and share. Godspeed. Bye.
Mama, siwezi